The Steelers got some bad news today that we'll talk about at the top of today's edition of Steelers News and Rumors. Then multiple wide receivers became available either via trade or via free agency today. We'll talk about all of those options and whether they make sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then finally, there's a quarterback that could be about to request a trade from his current team. I'll let you guys know who that quarterback is and whether or not the Steelers should be interested in him if he requests that trade. But before we get into the content this evening, I want to wish a very happy birthday to Justin Fields. He turns 26 years of age today, still pretty darn young, which is one of the reasons why many people in this fan base want to bring him back as the next Steelers starting quarterback. And hey, it would be pretty darn cool if they do re-sign Justin Fields, that they do it later tonight. And if that happens, we'll be going live right here on Steelers Talk. But wish Justin a happy birthday down there in the comment section to kick off today's show. Type those HBDs to wish Justin Fields a happy birthday here on a Wednesday. So let's start with the bad news here, which is that the Las Vegas Raiders have come to terms on a massive contract extension for superstar edge rusher Maxx Crosby. And you might be saying, Jack, why does this matter for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Well, the details here is the reason why. 3 years, $106.5 million over those 3 years, which puts his annual money at $35.5 million per season. That makes him the highest paid defender in all of football history. So that has reset the edge rusher market. Of course, it used to be Nick Bosa at $34 million. And of course, that's bad news for the Pittsburgh Steelers because they have already made it abundantly clear that they plan on giving TJ Watt a massive contract extension this offseason. And the reason why, I've been saying all offseason, like if you're going to give Watt this extension, you got to make it happen fast so that you're not having to pay more when all these other people that are free agents this year and are going to get new contracts end up topping the market. So I think the sooner the better when it comes to this contract extension for TJ Watt. And at this point, now that Maxx Crosby is making $35.5 million per season, Watt, who is 30 years old as we speak right now, might be asking for even more than that. He might be asking for anywhere up to like 35.6 all the way to like maybe even $37 million per season. He is a perennial NFL Defensive Player of the Year candidate. He's been nominated for the award a bunch of times. He's won it once. He probably should have won it more than once, but I won't get into that here on today's show. But he is somebody that's consistently put himself in the discussion for the most impactful football player in the entire National Football League, and he's going to want to be compensated to the degree of the performance that he has had on the field. So if you're hoping to get TJ Watt back for like $30 million per season, I mean, maybe he'll take that, but I really don't think he's going to do the Steelers any favors. And I think when he gets his contract, it's going to be, and he gets his extension done, I think it'll make him the highest paid defensive player in the history of the National Football League. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comments section. Would you sign Watt to an extension worth $35.5 or more million per season, or do you think the Steelers should let him walk or trade him this offseason? Give me a yes or a no for today's pinned comment. YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. When that happens, take advantage of that time by giving me a yes or a no down there in the comments. So it's kind of a wide receiver frenzy around the National Football League today because there was a number of big-name wide receivers that were made available either via trade or via free agency here. We'll start with Christian Kirk. Adam Schefter reported earlier today that the Jaguars plan to release veteran wide receiver Christian Kirk, and this one is actually probably one of the more realistic options for the Pittsburgh Steelers once we get to free agency next week. The reason for that is that the Steelers were actually interested in trading for Kirk at the trade deadline last year before he ended up breaking his collarbone, which ended his season. So he's going to be a free agent this year. He can play on the outside, but he's really known more as a slot specialist, and the Steelers have certainly been connected to him in the past, plus even Deshaun Elliott and others have started recruiting him to the Pittsburgh Steelers, so it certainly seems like he's got some connections inside the Steelers building that want him here in Pittsburgh. The projected contract, it's a little bit fuzzy right now because he is coming off an injury, but I think he's going to be worth somewhere in the range of 2 years, $10 to $12 million per season. We'll see where his contract figure ends up with the increased salary cap number this year. He's a good player. I won't say he's a dynamic playmaker type. He's a good route runner, good technician from the slot. He's a tough player, good locker room presence. I don't think he's a big needle-moving presence like some of another receiver that we're going to talk about on today's show here very shortly, but he's certainly a good player that would be a good addition to the Steelers wide receiver room, and I think that this is actually a very likely wide receiver option. If you were to place a bet on the one receiver that the Steelers end up signing in free agency, I think right now Christian Kirk probably has the best odds out of any receiver out there. Probably second goes to Darius Slayton, formerly with the New York Giants. But then Tyler Lockett, one of Russell Wilson's former receivers there with the Seattle Seahawks, announced today that he is going to be getting released by the Seattle Seahawks, and he's free to sign with any team that he pleases. Now, if the team ends up bringing back Russell Wilson, perhaps it's something that the team thinks about bringing him in. Now, his skill set is kind of redundant with Calvin Austin III's as kind of smaller route running type of wide receivers. So it'll be interesting to see what will happen with Lockett. I think right now most people expect him to be a Las Vegas Raider. And hey, if this team ends up going with Justin Fields, I could certainly see Russell Wilson pairing back up with Tyler Lockett there in Sin City. But then also, speaking of Seahawks wide receivers, it was a crazy day if you're a Seahawks fan. Tom Pelissero reported today, two-time Pro Bowl wide receiver DK Metcalf has requested a trade, and the Seahawks have agreed to explore options, sources tell me and Ian Rappaport. And then Zachary Smith, who works for Steelers Now, had said this on his Twitter earlier today. The Steelers are absolutely in on DK Metcalf. How aggressive of an offer will they put on the table? I don't know. They've already made the call, though, just as they did last year. So Zachary Smith confirms that the Steelers have made a call in regards to a potential trade with DK Metcalf, and they are in the mix, okay? So I think that Pittsburgh needs to kick the tires on this, guys, man. Like, there's just not a whole lot of guys that are DK Metcalf's size, speed, and then also his age. He's only 27 years old. He is a superstar wide receiver as far as I'm concerned, and of course, the Steelers want to be a kind of bomb it down the field type of football team off of play action, and DK Metcalf is certainly that type of player, one of the best go ball receivers in the National Football League with his size and speed combination. I mean, he is just he is a marvel physically that I think would work really, really well here with the Steelers offense. And I think, you know, a lot of people might not like this, but I do think that he would work better with Russell Wilson's skill set than with Justin Fields' skill set. So if they do go out and get DK Metcalf, I think they might end up going with Russell Wilson instead of Justin Fields. Now, Metcalf is going to want to get paid. So that's something that Steelers fans are going to have to realize, all right? So he's going to want to get paid somewhere in the range of around $30 to $35 million per season, all right? With the cap number going up, he certainly feels like he's a star wide receiver and should be compensated as such. So somewhere in the range of 30 to 35 is probably what it's going to be for DK Metcalf. That's obviously going to eat up quite a bit of the Steelers' salary cap in 2025 if they trade for him, and he is not going to be cheap, okay? Like, I think it's going to cost at least 2 second-round draft picks to get DK Metcalf. The reason why I think it's going to cost at least this much, I've seen a lot of people throw out a second-round pick and then a third-round pick. I don't think that gets the job done, just because I think that there's so much competition to acquire DK Metcalf. This is kind of an underwhelming wide receiver class in free agency, if I'm being honest. And if you really want to get an impact player at wide receiver, there aren't many options, and Metcalf is one of those options. So I expect the Chargers to be in on a Metcalf trade. I expect the Patriots to be in on a potential DK Metcalf trade. And there's going to be other suitors for Metcalf. So you're going to have to pay to get him, not only in terms of a new contract, but also you're going to have to give up pretty high draft picks here, probably one this year and then another one next year to be able to get DK Metcalf in your building. And it might even cost the Steelers their first-round draft pick, which will definitely be an interesting situation, whether the Steelers would take that or not. So let me know down there in the comments section, would you accept this DK Metcalf trade? Would you trade this team's second-round pick in the next 2 drafts in exchange for Metcalf's services and pay him at least $30 million per season on his next contract? Give me an A for accept or D for decline. In just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Fanatics. And while I'm talking about Fanatics, give me an A or D down there in the comment section and give me your take on trading for Metcalf. And with that, if you are looking for a way to keep your ears warm during the cold weather months in Pittsburgh or wherever you live around the United States or around the world, you guys can get this awesome Steelers beanie in your collection today. When you go to chatsports.com/beanie, it's on sale right now. And then also it helps out the channel. So we really do appreciate your guys' support. And Fanatics sends us part of the proceeds every single time someone purchases one of these beanies. So it helps us get more equipment and better equipment. It helps us improve our graphics, all that great stuff. We greatly appreciate your guys' contributions, and you can get this awesome Steelers beanie in your collection as well. So go to chatsports.com/beanie. That link is in the comments and description of today's show to help out our show and help yourself out by getting this awesome piece of Steelers apparel in your collection. So we talked about Tyler Lockett, we talked about DK Metcalf. I'm going to speculate a little bit here that Geno Smith, the 34-year-old quarterback here, might be next and might even request a trade away from the Seattle Seahawks this offseason. He's got 1 year left on his deal. He needs to restructure it in order to remain with the Seattle Seahawks. And, if Seattle's going to be starting over, and it certainly seems like they're doing that. Like, they have a younger receiver in Jackson Smith and Jigba that they really like, but Tyler Lockett is now leaving. It looks like they're shopping DK Metcalf for the right price. Like, Geno might be sitting there and saying, man, this offensive line stinks. You guys have not protected me for the last several seasons, and all I have now is Jackson Smith and Jigba to throw to. I mean, I'm 34 years old. You got to trade me somewhere else. He could certainly take that posture here. And then from Seattle's perspective, if they're going to be starting over and getting younger, does bringing back Geno Smith for the next 2 to 3 seasons as your starting quarterback and extending him this offseason really make a ton of sense? I think that if Geno becomes available here, in terms of the Steelers, they're trying to win now, and the focus should be on the quarterback that can give them the best chance to win a Super Bowl right now, because that's their focus. And out of all the options available to them, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, of course, I think Geno, out of all those options, would give this team the best possible chance at success. Geno's 34 years old, and, that is a little bit older, but it's not ancient, all right? Like, he can still play, especially with the arm talent that he has at his disposal. He's got great size, 6'3", 221, phenomenal arm strength and arm talent that could certainly play in the AFC North conditions. In my opinion, he's one of the most underrated passers in the National Football League today. There's at least 4 to 5 throws a game Geno Smith makes where it's like, oh my goodness, how did he fit it into that window? I mean, he is a really, really good quarterback and really underrated. And the reason why people think he stinks is because his offensive line has been among, if not the worst offensive line since he's taken over as the starting quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks a few seasons back. And, I think that he would definitely want a new contract if he's traded to the Steelers. Obviously, his current contract needs to be restructured. So if he gets traded somewhere, he would need a new deal to keep him here in Pittsburgh long term if that's what the Steelers want to do. And I think that just Geno is better than any other quarterback option out there. I mean, like Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, Aaron Rodgers, other options out there. Geno Smith, in my opinion, is a bona fide, at the very least, top 15 quarterback in the league right now. And I think if you put a decent offensive line in front of him and you give him a good run game, he can be a really good quarterback for this Pittsburgh Steelers football club. Now, don't worry, guys. I can hear you guys at home saying, no, we want Justin Fields. We want Justin Fields. I still think Fields is the favorite to get the job because remember, guys, the Steelers want to have their quarterback situation figured out before free agency begins, all right? So in order to get Geno Smith, he essentially needs to request a trade, and then the Steelers need to land him before free agency begins next Monday. So there's definitely a very defined timetable here for the Steelers to even think about landing Geno Smith for next season, and Fields right now seems to be the target for the Pittsburgh Steelers to be their next starting quarterback. But for me personally, I would prefer Geno because I think that Geno plus a great run game, which is this team is trying to build, I think that would be a really, really good combination. Geno's ability to really rip it on play action. He's got a great deep ball. He really makes some phenomenal plays in big moments, some big time throws, that he just pop off the film when you watch him on tape. And, I think that he's going to be a little bit more expensive, but I don't know if he's going to be like Matthew Stafford level expensive. I think you could probably get him for something around like 2 years, $35 million per season. I think that would be something that would be realistic and something that would be reasonable, especially for a 34-year-old. I think that this is something the Steelers could do, and this is something that I would probably sign off on if I am the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, in terms of compensation in a trade, I think that he'd probably be worth a third-round pick. Maybe it's like a conditional third-round pick or something like that, but I think Geno, somebody that's probably a top 15 quarterback in the game, fits what the Steelers want in their quarterback. I think that'd be worth a third-round pick, at least in my opinion. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Would you accept this deal to get Geno Smith in a Steelers uniform next year? Type A for accept or D for decline. I'm probably higher on Geno than probably the normal NFL fan is, but let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Make sure you type those real ones down there in the comments if you haven't already. If you made it to the end of today's Steelers Talk video, we got more great stuff coming your way. Tomorrow, we got Steelers Talk Live starting at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Me and Coop are going to give you guys our full NFL free agency preview, NFL trade targets, all this different stuff. It's going to be great fun tomorrow, so make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Join us at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time for Steelers Talk Live tomorrow afternoon. I greatly appreciate all of your guys' support. And until I see you guys tomorrow, here we go, Steelers.